Hey, we're back.
Hello.
Nice to see you again. It always seems kind of strange because, we chat behind the scenes before we go live, and then here we are saying hello to each other again. But hello to everybody who may be tuning in and who may tune in the future. I'm back here with Chris LaRoche, who is what I call the horse whisperer. And most definitely, you've got a gift for sure, Chris. Or more accurately, we could say you've embraced one of the gifts of your birthright.
Oh, thank
And
you.
you're in the initiation process, right? So today, Chris and I have decided to talk about intuition versus fear. Powerful, powerful subject. And before we kind of dive in, I'll let you know that Chris's questions come out of Chris's experience. So I have to credit to the questions to Chris, some very insightful questions. And before we go forward, I just want to clarify intuition versus fear. What is intuition and how does fear play into intuition? And what are the key components that we want to make sure that we embrace? So we'll talk about all of that. What are the components that we need to embrace? We need to remember who and what we are, and we need to know how to be that. So it might be easier, actually, as I think about this right now, it might be easier for you to just dive in with your question and how it came out and just take it from there.
Sure. Well, you and I were in conversation, and in that moment, you helped me see, like, peeled back the layers so I could see clearly that several of the actions I'd been taking over a few weeks were driven by fear. And I couldn't see it until I had that sort of revelation moment with you, and you helped me step back to the source of my actions, like the place inside of me from which they were stemming. And that seems so important to, so maybe you could talk about that piece.
Yeah, actually, very good, very good. And again, I have to say, for anybody who's truly on the path, and this is not a self-directed path. This isn't something that we can wake up and say, it's like if anybody goes online dating, I do not encourage it because it's your neuroses that does the shopping. So when somebody decides to become their own guide and teacher, it can be a little bit of a problem because you don't know what you don't know until you know what you know. And the blind leading the blind is something that's happening so much right now. So I salute your humble courage to be open to hear the constructive feedback that came from my intuition. So I was witnessing some of what you were doing, and I could feel in my body energetically that you were coming from fear. And you know this, we had this conversation. So for the sake of those, I could feel it. Now, there was nothing about your actual presentation that anybody who's normal, the average person, would pick up.
Yeah.
So I picked it up intuitively. And this is really, really helpful to recognize, okay, that we do have the ability, but you have to go through the initiation process. You must go through the training, and it does not happen in the matrix. There are no teachers and guides in the matrix. Anybody coming up through the mainstream, be very, very cautious, because anybody who's actually awakened will not promote themselves, and they will not come up through the mainstream. Okay. And the reason for this is because they don't know what they don't know. And it's all about intuition. It's all about that inner teacher. It's about the inner guide. It's about the inner wisdom. So as I was witnessing you, and we've been working together for a while now, okay, because of that dynamic, I spoke up and said, what are you doing? Now, why did I bring it up? Not to offend you, not to hurt you, but because I know what your true goal is. And I want to serve and support you in attaining that goal. And this is something that most people don't realize, is that if we're coming from it from the intellectual perspective, if we're coming at it from ego, if we're coming at it from the uninitiated persona, then you can't see it. Right?
Yeah, I couldn't see it, and was getting positive feedback from others, and my ego resisted hearing that from you at first. But because I have seen the truth and how your intuition consistently over time, over and over and over and over, is so trustworthy, I knew I had to let that go and follow that path instead.
And so what happened when you let go of this process, which was coming from fear. So you were coming from fear. It was what motivated your action.
Mhm.
Okay. And when you were coming from fear, and that's what motivated your action, it's also important to recognize that we want to keep the channel clean, that information highway. Okay. And in
Mhm.
order to keep the channel clean, so to speak, it's not about keeping the channel clean. The intuitive connection itself is clean. It's about not getting distracted or pulled out of balance, which will inform your perception of intuition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It really
Okay.
makes sense.
So, and this is why going through the initiation process by divine design, everything that I've learned how to do did not come through any course in the matrix. I haven't read any books. I haven't taken any courses. I get constant confirmation, which is also what comes with the gift of intuition. All right. You
Mhm.
will get confirmation. So it's really important to remain humble and aware that as long as our ego still has a hold on us, we can be tricked into thinking that intuition is
Mhm.
intuition, when what actually it is it's fear. And fear takes on many different fear as a false evaluation about reality can be the fear that
Mhm.
causes you to feel scared and all of those things, or it can also be coming through the other quote unquote sins. Now, what is a sin? A sin is to miss your mark. So if you're going to be greedy, you haven't remembered who and what you are, and you're missing the mark. You're sinning.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's an archer's term for, missing the bullseye. So if you've gone through the correct initiation, which is an inner process guided by your intuition through your guides and the angelic hosts that support you in this process, it will affect your waking state. It will affect your dream state, all while you're standing by yourself in the middle of the forest.
Mm.
Okay, no matrix interaction. So the matrix will also cause people to misinterpret intuition through things like pride, vanity,
Mhm.
greed,
Mhm.
lust, envy. Okay. So sloth, not so much, because we don't tend to be lazy when it comes to this stuff. But we see a lot of this now. We see a lot of people who are drunk on their own Kool-Aid and they're
Mhm.
giving misinformation. So I really encourage anyone who's listening to make sure that if you are working with a guide or a teacher, that they did not come up through the matrix.
Mhm.
Now, it's not to say that they can't be helpful, but I've seen time and time again myself intuitively as I'm witnessing someone speaking in person or I'm watching something online, which I don't do very often, to be honest. I'm very discerning about what I listen to. I see many times where they're missing the mark and not seeing it because they're coming from that place of fear, which is a
Mhm.
false evaluation about reality. And one that we're seeing right now that is so, so dangerous is those people that are promoting themselves as teachers.
Mhm.
So after you recognize that you were coming from that place of fear,
Mhm.
which was to be presenting something that wasn't accurate, you were motivated through fear. Okay. What happened for you afterwards? Because intuition gives you the insight,
Mhm.
intuition gives you the correct message if you know how to listen correctly. Okay.
Mhm.
Intuition gives you the support, and intuition will also give you the confirmation.
Mhm.
So we're looking for a full wheel and experience here in terms of how this works. So I came to you and I shared with you. Actually, I think we were in session. I don't
Mhm.
shared with you what I was feeling, and it
Yeah.
wasn't my opinion.
No, it was like you're reading a vibratory map, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, as I've said in other chats, I'm able to read you if I look at you, if I hear your birth name, if I see a photograph of you, if I touch you, if you focus on me, if you send me an email, if you phone me, I can literally any connection in any way. I've developed to the point where I can read that connection. Now,
Mhm.
my job is to make sure that to receive the intuition correctly, that I keep it in my lane, which means I cannot judge, opinionate, or have expectations. While I'm reading intuition, receiving intuition, intuiting, I
Uh-huh.
must remain innocent. And what is innocence?
It's not what we are told it is.
It
It's
is
like,
not to be naive or gullible. It is to be
no.
neutral. No
Yeah.
judgment.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Okay. And we see innocence really displayed in children, not as much as we used to, but you see a child speak the blunt truth with no intention to harm at all. It's just, why are you doing that?
Chris, why do you have so many wrinkles?
I'm not sure I would say exactly, right? I remember a time I took my son to a birthday party, and my son had never eaten wieners. My children were never fed wieners, but I was giving them tofu. And we went to a birthday party. God bless him. He's about 4 years old, and he's biting into his first real hot dog in his life. You know, when all the parents still stay at the party, that was one of those. And he bites into the hot dog, and he says out loud to the entire group of people, he says, "Mommy, are these the cheap ones?" Because he'd never tasted it. It was a completely different experience. And God bless him. He didn't mean any harm. He was just making a neutral observation. And there was no judgment. There was no criticism. So we want to understand that that's how intuition comes through. So the interpreter of intuition, the recipient of intuition for best results needs to remain neutral.
And you're even like, you're reading this time you interact with me, and then this time you interact with me. Like you were even letting go of everything that was before, because people change energetically, especially if they're doing the work.
Yes. And absolutely. So I meet you where you are now, because there is only now, right? Again, another part of the initiation process that so many don't go through. And I see so many people over the years promoting themselves as intuitive and literally planting seeds of fear. I've gone just for giggles myself to different psychics and so forth, just to see what they're doing. And so I'd have to say to anybody, if you're tuning into somebody that is promoting themselves and they've got a sign in the window, odds are they're just beginning in this process. So it's subject to contamination, or they really don't have the gift at all. I went to one intuitive reader in Vancouver, and she just sat down, and she was really quite a character. She had the Bronx accent. She was like, yeah, and she's chewing the gum. She's just like a character. And she goes, and then so she's reading all these things about me, none of which she got correctly. And you could see that clearly she was reading my wardrobe and so forth, and saying
making assumptions,
right, based on exactly, and then I said to her, I said, and what do you see for my career? What do you see that I do? She goes, well, you can do all kinds of things. She said, you're a little bit intuitive. You have a little bit of intuition. Wrong accent, chewing gum. You have a little bit of intuition. So, and she goes, and what do you do? I said, I'm an international teacher and guide, purely using intuition, and was born with the gifts present at a very young age. And she went, ow. Okay, so we need to be cautious here, because a lot of the times, if we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know how to practice discernment, intuition can be turned into fear. And it can be the deliverer, the one who's delivering the supposed intuitive message. If that person is not a clean vehicle, if that person hasn't gone through the initiation themselves, then most assuredly the message is going to be contaminated. And this is largely the case. And this is why so many people easily debunk psychics and channels and mediums.
Because many of them are
frauds. So let's take a look at what's happening in the world right now. We've got political leaders who've made themselves into medical doctors.
Right.
We've got political leaders who've made themselves into spiritual guides. We've got people in the movie industry presenting themselves as spiritual teachers.
So many of them.
We're seeing a lot of this, and it's very, very dangerous. And if you're following somebody, okay, who presents themselves as a world leader and therefore somehow special and renowned, watch out for special relationships. Okay, tune in to LynetteLinda.com if you're looking for more information about what we're talking about. We go deep dive there. So if you've got a political leader that's presenting themselves in such and such a way, and you don't have the ability to recognize what intuition really is and isn't, then you're subject to being contaminated, taking that information, thinking it's good stuff, and going forward. And I've seen again and again, and I see this especially in the movie industry, with how many people who had a name for sports medicine or a name from a movie or a show, and they've taken that branding and now spun it into being a spiritual teacher. And it's really, really dangerous, because these guys don't know what they don't know. And I've watched and witnessed them presenting incorrect information. And the beautiful part is that I encourage everybody, you're welcome to take what I share with you and do whatever you want with it. I'm not your guru. Go to the guide inside. So I will say, everything I give you, check the guide inside. If I'm correct, it'll land. You'll feel the truth. If I'm incorrect, well, then I've given you the opportunity to think for yourself and to not blindly be led by some brand name label of somebody who literally doesn't know what they're doing, but's read a few books, fancies themselves a teacher, and doesn't realize they haven't gone through the correct initiation. So I really want to share this because it's very, very dangerous, and it leads the people astray. Now, there's also a karmic debt that goes with this. So when you're connected to your intuition correctly, trusting, because you've built self-respect and self-love, there's many tools that need to be developed in order to become a clear conduit for powerful intuition. Many tools that need to be developed. So once you've gone through the initiation, you can still only be really clear that the intuition that's coming through is for you. Okay, so for example, it's subject to perspective. So although I have developed to the point of being, I'm told through consistent years and years of feedback, that I am quite clear and accurate at very, very high level. Even some have said perfectly. It requires a complete lifestyle that supports this process, integrity being the first thing. And I've witnessed so many times somebody will get the message somewhat clear, but just on the last mark, they completely tear it off. So we want to recognize that the matrix, the system, does not want you to connect to this intuitive voice. It doesn't happen in batches and bunches. It doesn't happen in groups. It happens at the subjective level. So a high level of intuition is the result of daily practices to keep the pathway clear. It's a result of a being who has chosen integrity. And it will also be somebody who has released themselves from the matrix. I don't live in the matrix, right? I'm in it, but I'm not of it. And this is a clear distinction. So watch out.
Is part of why you are spend very little time and are very aware of what you let in, like on the internet or watching movies or whatever, because it's that lifestyle piece, and there's sort of a protecting the clarity of the channels and the
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's not protecting it. I don't need protection.
Okay.
I live at a frequency that is untouchable, you could say. And that's why we create these boundaries. And the tool that I share is, are you honored by the company you keep, what you eat, and where you sleep? Because it creates that safe space for this intuition to come in. So it's not that I'm protected, it's that I'm so highly sensitive. And more often than not, nobody's ever perfect. You will always be offered challenges. You never arrive while you're in the physical body, okay? So you just become more and more adept at dealing with the external forces, at being able to transmute. You become the alchemist, all right? So for example, if you don't want to get wet, don't go in the ocean. Essentially is the story here. So somebody who presents themselves as a teacher, but who is deeply entrenched in the matrix, from my perspective, is most definitely not a clear channel, because you can't receive a clear signal through the problem. You have to take yourself outside of it. And this requires a lifestyle shift. Okay. And we do this on purpose. It becomes simply too much work. And this has been something I'm discussing with friends and with clients, the fact that as we become more sensitive, and you know yourself and many people on the network have experienced, they have to start letting go of the external drama, and they just find, I can't watch horror movies and things like that. And the reason is because we are made of love. We are made of love. And as we evolve and remember who and what we are, we release the 7 sins. We're no longer missing the mark. And if you're not missing the mark, you now become capable of, I call this the X-ray vision of intuition. You now become capable of recognizing where others or what environments are missing the mark.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I was able to witness you in a setting where it wasn't actually you, it was a video of you actually. So in that video, because of the level of sensitivities that I have, I was able to interpret that you weren't coming from an authentic place, you were coming from fear. All right. So the more sensitive you are, the less likely you are to be involved in those external worlds. And social media for me is something I would be very happy to get rid of, but it is a means to an end, and I need it at this point. But I do very clearly structure my life to filter as much as possible to keep the channel as clean as possible, which means no vanity, no pride. I don't promote myself. I don't name grab. I'm not trying to drop names. I'm not trying to bring famous people. Now, there's a big one to watch out for. You know, oh, we're bringing in this famous person. And what you're really doing is just regurgitated ego, personality, opinion. Okay. And it's because we have, and it's idolatry.
Yeah.
Right. So if we are programmed to believe, to give our power over to someone outside of us, purporting to be the guru, the one who knows, la, 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 okay, practice discernment, because I will guarantee you that unless they are living in such and such a way, the message is contaminated and they may not even know it themselves. In which case they're incurring karma. And if I'm aware that somebody is behaving in this way, then I'm going to create space between myself. I don't want to judge, but I know that's going to blow up.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be around when it does. You do you, that's okay. And I won't normally share with anybody what I shared with you, but because of the professional relationship, but otherwise it's not my business what you choose to do.
I have said I'm willing and ready. I want it.
Yes. Yeah. So intuition requires that we develop an inner trust. We must learn self-trust, self-respect, and self-love, because ultimately it's between you and your guides. It's between you and your inner voice. I'm only here to serve and support those that want to, enter onto the path of ascension. And before you can even enter onto the path of ascension, you have to reach a certain level of consciousness. So the matrix right now during the Great Awakening is trying to trick so many people in so many ways, right? So you may find yourself on the path and then all of a sudden you choose to buy into idolatry. Okay, you decide that you should take medical advice from the politician, or you should take spiritual advice from the actor. Okay, and this is really, really dangerous. And I'm not trying to instill fear here. I'm trying to encourage people to practice discernment and always go to the guide inside. Be brutal and authentic in your discernment process. Put their feet to the fire. You'll find that a lot of people right now can share a concept, and this is something you and I talked about, is that they might hear something in a book or hear it from someone else. There's a lot of copycatting going on out there. It's not authentic knowledge, which is experience. And so somebody will take a concept and put it out there, and it sounds really great when they present the concept. But if you actually challenge them in application, they can't do it. And that's why the initiation is so important. Understanding the initiation. The initiation will take you through the process of becoming capable, very capable of discerning when it's intuition and when it's fear. And if it's fear, it's contaminated. And intuition is fed by innocence and integrity. Integrity, intuition, innocence, all goes in.
Yeah.
So I may act as a guide and support, but ultimately, no matter what, don't believe me, I might be the biggest liar on the planet. Go to the guide inside. I say it all the time. I say, do not put me on a pedestal. I will fall off, I will jump off, or you will push me off. I'm not superior. Do not make me your idol. Absolutely not. I am simply here as one who's already developed these abilities that are innately within all of us. It doesn't make me special. It doesn't make me superior. It simply makes me one who knows, who's come back to guide, support, and serve. I am here to serve you. You are not here to worship me. I'm not selling bling, bling, and swag. I don't need you to put my name on a t-shirt. These are all warning signs. somebody who's truly got heightened intuition, really powerful stuff, doesn't want anything to do with that world. Why? Because it's too much work. We have to drop our frequency. We have to practice so many boundaries that by the end of the day, you're exhausted because you've literally gone to swim with sharks and then wonder why you're a little bit tense when you get out of the water.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So when you're working with animals, this isn't something that'll happen with animals because animals don't have an ego. And it's so beautiful. I've seen you working with the horses and other animals. It's so beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
It's so clean.
It's so clean. And when I let the other piece go, with you helping me see it was coming from fear, which is a whole interesting thing in and of itself. I could, when I let that go, I felt more intuitive capabilities begin to develop with the animals.
Yes. And why is that? While you're in fear, the intellect is ruling.
Oh, that's really good.
Right? And that's how it pulls you in.
Yeah.
Now, what blocks the third eye? What actually blocks intuition from coming in? You know,
doubt and reasoning, like
intellectual pride and reasoning, which creates doubt.
Okay.
Right? Intuition is intangible. The logical mind wants tangible facts. Okay, so this is another part of the initiation process.
Yeah.
And before that can happen, you need to start to experience things like the dark night.
Yeah.
To face your own shadow experience. Okay, so experience is actually knowledge. Information regurgitated, picked up off the internet or read from a book is not knowledge. It's regurgitated information which goes through the intellect over and over and over again. The intellect goes, yeah, that makes sense based on my 5 senses, so I'm going to run with it, when intuition is whole new level, like all next level, and consistently expanding. The cleaner the channel, the cleaner the vehicle, the higher the level of consciousness. So I don't actually channel another being. I'm simply very clearly focused and connected to my own higher conscious self. And I want that connection as much as possible because it gives me that constant stream of clean intuition, no contamination by fear. And with practice over time, and this means many lifetimes even, with practice over time, you become capable of perceiving fear at such a subtle level. It's like the Princess and the Pea. Do you remember that old?
Yeah, totally.
The Princess and the Pea, they put a pea on a mattress and she can't sleep and they end up with like 35 mattresses. She can still feel the pea.
Yeah.
That's about intuition. It's there. It's there. It might only be tiny, but it's there. And the more heightened the development of intuitive connection, the cleaner the vehicle, the more integrity, the more innocence, which only happens through an initiation process that the divine universe takes you on. You cannot achieve this through the logical mind, but it is going to try to trick you. Yours tricked you for a moment. So you were humble, which meant you were being honest about what you were capable of and what you weren't capable of, which requires radical integrity. So I salute you. Okay. So you practiced being humble. You practiced being open, which meant, okay, you know what? It's real. I don't know some things here. And I'm not so drunk on my own Kool-Aid that I need to think I know everything. I don't know everything. I never will. Nobody ever does. The one who thinks they've got all the answers, who pretends they have the answers, is really drunk on their own Kool-Aid and fooling themselves. And it will crash. And we're going to start to see them crash. More and more of them crash. Your ability to remain open enabled you to see it. Because your going into fear blocks intuition. When you went, okay, I'm going to be humble and open. I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to at least inquire. You don't have to believe me, but, inquire. And if you inquire and I'm correct, and it turns out I was, then that's the lesson. You get it. And you can let go of the fear and say, okay, you know, I'm no longer going to go in that direction because it's motivated by fear, and I'm going to let it go. And now the intuition can come in because the fear was holding you out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And you got immediate confirmation. Again, back to, you'll get the guidance, you'll get the support, and you'll get the confirmation. And I think in our connection since this conversation we had a few weeks ago, you've received several confirmations,
Mm-hmm.
all of which are increasing your intuition,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually getting you what you thought
Yes.
you were going to get going the other way. And all
So,
of it because intuition was able to feel it. And most of the people around you, as you said, were supporting you. Did anybody else point out what I pointed out?
nope.
That's the other piece. It's rare. And I'm not trying to make myself special. I'm trying to share this with you so that you can practice discernment. Be
Mm-hmm.
very cautious. Listen to your intuition. Check your boundaries. Determine whether or not this person, this guide, this teacher, this information is coming from a contaminated place. And I guarantee you, if it's coming from the matrix, if
Mm-hmm.
it's coming from somebody who has placed a crown on their own head and promoted themselves, be very, very cautious. It doesn't mean they might not give you a few breadcrumbs, but I guarantee you, one way or another, one day or another, they will send you astray.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed. So watch out. And in understanding this, you're going to be able to miss a lot of the pitfalls that the logical mind sends us on because it thinks it knows. Remember, the
Mm-hmm.
logical mind is the servant. It's the masculine energy. It is not the master. The master is the feminine energy, which is spirit connection. Feminine energy, and we all have it, has nothing to do with gender. Everybody gets masculine and feminine energy. The masculine energy rules the physical realm. The spirit energy is the connection, the essence of who and what you really are. Short terms, there's so much more I could say on that.
Mm-hmm.
Abbreviated version of that, okay? And when we lead with the logical mind, which is what we're taught to do in the matrix, you can be fooled easily, misled,
Mm-hmm.
and fooled in ways that you cannot if you're practicing coming from that aligned intuitive state. But in order to come from the aligned intuitive state consistently and clearly to the point where it actually has value, you must let go
Mm-hmm.
of mind being your master.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. Or
What?
I understand conceptually, and this is something I see all the time. I had a deep conversation with somebody last evening about this, is that very intelligent person, very intelligent man, and coming from an intellectual place. This is
Mm-hmm.
nobody's dummy, intellectually.
Yeah.
So because the intellect can be so powerful and effective in the physical reality, you don't know what you don't know. And we assume, which makes an ass of you and me, we assume that
Uh-huh.
it is the same in the intuitive connection, and it's not. And this is why the matrix has taught us to disconnect from our feelings.
And that's like if a person's saying, okay, how do I distinguish between intellect, which has me enraptured, versus intuition? It's feeling.
Yes, feeling. Yes. And if you are not clear in your own feeling body, if you haven't worked through your own shadow experience, okay, it's not a shadow side. You do not have a shadow side. That's BS, okay? There is no shadow side of you at all. You are a multidimensional, interdimensional, multisensory, immortal creator God. You are made of energy. There is no shadow in that. There is
Mhm.
only a shadow experience. Again, another false teachings, right?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is only a shadow experience while you're physically focused. So a lot of the teachers out there say your shadow side, your shadow side. Well, where I come from, that's completely incorrect. And it subtly promotes shame.
Yeah. Because, and there's something in you you have to get rid of. And then
Yes.
is like repression, suppression, a whole
Yes.
spiral.
And it activates the whole blame and shame game. Remember, blame and shame are man-made. They're not on the feeling spectrum by divine design.
Mm.
So your shadow side, okay, if you hear somebody say your shadow side, then that is a clue. They don't get it. The shadow is not a side of me. It's a menu choice that I'm going to make. Now, if I'm tired and if I'm in the matrix and I'm hanging out with liars, robbers, and thieves, I'm most likely going to make a shadow side decision, in which
Uh,
case I'm going to go out of balance. I'm going to have that experience and it's going to feel like crap because I'm out of balance. That's not who you are. Bring it back to balance. This is who you are. This is why it feels so good when we experience joy and love and community and unity and integrity and, standing in your own power. That's why those things feel good, because that's your feeling body intuitively guiding you back
mhm.
to the correct position. So when you saw the fear in your own experience and you had that lesson, didn't make you wrong or bad. It meant, oh, check mark, next lesson.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
No shame, no blame.
No
Are you
shame.
aware of what you're doing? And when you owned it with integrity, you were willing to look at that, you were able to set yourself free.
Mhm.
And I'll be really surprised if it ever fools you again.
Mm,
And the
great.
intellect loses a little more control. It has less pull over you. You've
Mhm.
spotted another way that it's trying to suck you into its lies and game.
Mhm.
So intuition increases. Correct.
Mhm.
You got it correct. You recognized it, but you had the courage. You were humble enough. You were practicing integrity to take a look, to say, you know what, maybe I don't know. And this is why it's so important, if you're working with a guide and a teacher, and I highly recommend it, that you practice discernment and to filter
Mhm.
that guide and teacher. Don't just give it over. And even if your guide and teacher is still in a body, don't believe me, I might be the biggest liar on the planet, go to the guidance side, but I know where I'll put my money, because I work every single day at walking my talk. Anybody who spends time with me in day-to-day life, I'm no different on the screen and off the screen. I don't have different standards. I practice the same tools myself. I have the ability to resolve conflict. I have the ability to intuit correctly and clearly. And I
Mhm.
bring those developed skills to the table.
Mhm. I've been with you in person once, and that is exactly like, I just wanna speak to that, like, energetically, you feel exactly the same. And recently I had an experience of somebody that I know online and have followed a few things. There've been a few nuggets of great stuff, and happened to be with that person who is quite famous in person, and it was like boing, like against this energetic mismatch that was just like, "Oh, okay, great."
So when you
More
say
helpful
energetic
information.
mismatch, what did that mean?
Like dissonance, like wasn't what I thought, wasn't what is portrayed.
Wasn't what was promoted,
Yes. Yes.
right? So
Yep.
there's one of the clues when they promote themselves, when they advertise, okay? Because anybody who's gone through the initiation process understands that we don't waken in batches and bunches. It happens at the subjective level, one at a time. And anybody who's going through this process, like yourself, recognizes it's very rare for there to be even more than one in a family. And we're typically called the black sheep, one in a family that's going through the awakening process.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's more, but if there's one in the family that goes through the process and models the way, not promoting,
Mhm.
modeling the way, then they draw the others in, which has happened in your family, right? And your extended family, as a result of one or two of you modeling the way, the
Mhm.
others are now coming into the practice. I know your family well. And it
Yes,
began with
well,
one. It began with one,
began with my sister. Yep.
right?
Mhm.
So this is really important to recognize, that until your intuition develops to that point, you will be bedazzled by the smoke screen, by the
Mhm.
smoke and mirrors.
Mhm.
So to really, really watch out. I can think of several people that are putting themselves out there as guides and teachers that I have met in person, and no, thank you,
Yeah.
no, thank you. I'm aware of uh, things about this person, and it's not no, thank you. I reject you. It's not I judge you.
Mm.
I resist you. No, none of that. It's just, yeah, that's not for me. That's not the experience that I'm having, and I don't resonate with that, and
There's no
to be in
line.
your company doesn't feel good to me. So when we interact with another being who's authentic, it will call us up.
Mhm.
We always rise to the highest common denominator, and one being who is awakened will command a very large space, and anybody in the space, anybody who enters that person's space will typically feel, if they're ready and willing, they'll feel themselves coming from a more conscious, allowing, loving, open space with
Mhm.
the person. And then when you leave that person's space, you'll go back to your current frequency.
Mhm.
Right. So a true guide and a true teacher does embody that frequency, okay, and practices the tools that they need to. And it's not shiny and sexy most of the time. It's really not. It's day in, day out, chop wood, carry water, one foot in front of the other. It doesn't make you popular. You have to give up a lot of the matrix experiences,
Mhm.
like what I call rubber chicken dinners and big galas and things like that. But I'm not drawn to them. Because
Mhm.
for me, at my level of sensitivity, it's sensory overload. It's too much. I can feel the greed. I can feel the lust. I can feel the idolatry. And that's all okay. But it requires that I do so much to
Yeah,
maintain this balance.
totally.
Right. So we start to let that go. And in so doing, we model the way and we hold the space for those that are ready and willing and resonate. I
Mhm.
don't vote. I work by attraction. If you resonate with me, great. And if you don't, great.
Yeah.
So not everybody's all ready at once. And it's important to be very, very respectful, and only one that's gone through the initiation to become a true guide and teacher will understand that through experience. So yourself now, as a result of your experience,
Mhm.
has changed the way that you're approaching the work that you do, even with animals. You interact with animals the most, but you
Mhm.
do still interact with humans. Has your latest, or probably not your latest, but this revelation that we're talking about, this revealing,
Mhm.
has it strengthened you or weakened you?
Strengthened me, and there was a period after where, like, contraction, like, I pulled away, I needed to be quiet, I had to go inward, and that may look, or the brain, the intellect may say that's weakening. It wasn't. It's like, just like, whoa, hold on now. Okay. Stop
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Stop everything and recalibrate and just be quiet for a while.
Yes. Reset,
Yeah.
redirect, course correct. That's
Yeah.
all. So we have to go inward, definitely. And if we do so with a humble, innocent heart, okay, we've been taught that to be humble is to minimize ourselves. This is not true. To be humble is to be fully aware of both your challenges and your assets. And my challenges are just future assets, not yet transmuted.
That's awesome.
Okay. So no
Yep.
matter what, it's all good. So I don't need to go into that self-reflected, gaining self-awareness, contracted inward state with any shame or blame. It's going to be, okay,
Mhm.
let's get curious. What'd you do? So
Mhm.
when I presented the information to you, there's no shame in the messages. It was just like, are
Mhm.
you aware? Have you seen? Did you know? Can you
Yeah.
see what I can see? Now, because you were humble, not minimizing yourself, going, you know what? Yeah, I love all this about myself, and the rest of it is just more that's getting transmuted to be loved, and I still love you. We don't decide we stop loving our children because they're being difficult and moody today. We love them
Mhm.
anyway. So when we can go into that state with a humble and loving heart, we actually become noble.
Mm.
And noble is not something that says I was born of a certain family. Not at all. That's a lie. To be noble is not to strive to be or to consider yourself to be greater than another being. To be noble is to practice being greater than your former self, constantly transmuting the
Mhm.
challenges. And if you're going to do this correctly and effectively, you cannot shame yourself.
Mhm.
You cannot blame. You must simply go, oh, get curious. Look at
Mhm.
that. Look what I was doing. Gosh. Yeah. I don't need to shame myself. I don't need to blame myself. Everything's happening for me. So I'm just going to go, oh, I see you. Oh, you clever little duck. And bye bye. Thank you. Thank you. Because you can't shame and blame yourself and release this.
That it was maybe one of the things that felt so incredible about this round of learning, or this particular lesson, was that because I do go and have a pattern of going into deep self-shame and stuff. And I
I
didn't
have had,
have
I
had.
no longer
I
have.
no longer have. There wasn't shame in this. And so I've
Oh, it's not.
experienced
So
much faster.
I want to stop you right there because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
such a valuable piece. Okay. You may have shamed and blamed yourself in the past, but there itself is another bonus golden piece for you. I was able to self-reflect without shame and blame
Mhm.
even more.
It was
Okay.
huge.
So make it your now. There is
Okay.
only now. Space and time doesn't exist.
Okay. Now,
Okay. So please
once
continue.
upon a time
Yes. There. Yeah.
and no
I told the
longer.
story.
Yeah, I told a story. And in this conversation, what I'm realizing is like, whoa, the transmutation was so much faster and richer without the shame.
Yes. And it is a transmutation. It's an alchemic process, but it's also a transcendent. It's many things
Uh-huh.
because it's not actually who you are. So you're not transmuting literally from being a bad girl to being a good girl.
Oh, that's
It's
good.
the divine loving light shedding what it's not.
It does feel subtractive. Like this work is
Yeah.
subtractive.
Yeah. And you feel so when we have an epiphany, right? So you had
Mhm.
an epiphany. That's what it is. When we learn a lesson, it's an epiphany. What is an epiphany? An epiphany is to see something that you did not see before. And
Ah,
when we get it, oh, I see it. It's only going to be because we practiced loving self-care. No shame, no blame. If you practice shame and blame, you cannot get the epiphany. The
mm,
epiphany requires that you practice blowjobs to be loving, open, and willing, not
yeah.
Joe jobs, judgments, opinions, expectations. Right? It's really important we recognize that. And so it allows us to move forward, no shame, no blame. And now we can have that epiphany. We can have that paradigm shift. We can have that insight. And what happens in your body? Describe for me viscerally, please, what
Uh-huh.
happens when you have an epiphany?
It's like, well, this time it was so powerful in the moment. It was like I felt something, all, there are no words for it. I'll just try. Like something dropped in that was like a luminescent kind of like goosebumps happen, a lightness happens, a like deeper breath. It's just whole body visceral, I guess, expansion or something.
Yes. And did you feel lighter or heavier?
Lighter. Yeah.
And that lighter feeling, what it actually is the divine light being that you are shedding a layer. The
Mm,
lies are heavy. The lies are dissonant. And you could imagine it like you're wearing a beautiful white gown. All right. And it's got a black splotch on it.
mm-hmm,
When you have an epiphany, the black splotch is removed
mm,
and it feels lighter and it looks better and it presents differently. It's a different
mm,
experience. Right. So
yeah.
the initiation process of one who has heightened true intuition, who is truly here to serve and support, is one that went through the lightning process.
Okay. I kept wanting to come back to the question of like, what is the initiation process? And so you're just going there. And how is it different than the pitfalls?
Well, the pitfalls are a part of it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the initiation process as guided by divine source, which is something that happens largely at the inner levels. Okay. All of my initiation for me happened at the inner levels, again, largely when I was alone, and also through the epiphany process. Okay.
Mhm.
And the epiphany is anybody who's lying to themselves, anybody who's projecting, anybody who's practicing idolatry, anybody who's presenting something that isn't true, anybody who's promoting themselves to make money and fame and fortune, or to gain power over, to manipulate, to dominate. There's a number of different ways and a number of different reasons. Okay. Is somebody who's actually weighted themselves down and you could barely see their beautiful white outfit.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
covered in these lack of awareness. It's covered in
Mhm.
lies. So the initiation process takes you through the recognition of the lie, which is imbalance, which is dissonant, and releases it. So something really important here to recognize is the word truth. We're taught that the truth is my subjective perspective or your subjective perspective. It's not. That's your subjective perspective. The truth is who and what we all are. So the initiation process takes you through, like a banana, peeling away of
Mhm.
what you're not to get
Mhm.
to the goodness.
Mhm.
And it takes time. It doesn't happen intellectually. It happens at the inner levels. Okay, so the initiation process is custom tailored for each individual at the subjective level.
Mhm.
It will come through to you through signs and symbols that are unique to you. So if you read a book that says a spider means this in your dreams, well,
Yeah.
spiders to me are great. It's the cycle of life. They're a necessary component. Do I want to sleep with them? No, but I do appreciate what the spider does. So if I see a spider in my dream, my conscious perspective of a spider is helpful, useful, necessary. Don't want to hang out with you, but appreciate what you bring to the table. Okay. So in somebody else's perspective who's afraid of spiders, a spider in their dream could be interpreted completely differently because they're afraid.
Mhm.
It becomes a symbol of fear instead of what it is for me, which is a cycle of life.
Mhm.
So symbols are subjective.
Okay.
Your intuition is highly subjective. It's custom tailored. We are each an individual, unique work of art. The matrix teaches us all to be the same and follow the herd. Very dangerous. So recognizing that it's subjective, that as soon as you decide, as soon as you set the intention internally, and you don't need to tell anybody, and I don't recommend that you do, hold your cards close to your chest because many will sabotage out of jealousy, greed, pride, envy, all of those things. Keep it to yourself. As you set the intention, I now desire to connect to my divine birthright. I now desire to connect to my higher conscious self. Okay, immediately the process will become delivered to you, custom delivered, custom tailored. So what does that symbol mean to you?
Mhm.
Not what does it mean from a book? Again, false teachings.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you? So if I dream about horses, it's a
Mhm.
powerful dream for me and it takes me back to my origin. Okay,
Mhm.
horses are a massive part of where I originated from, which is not earth. So horses for me are often like a trip home. And I love to be around them. And I just feel like I melt into them like chocolate. I just
Mhm.
love the connection. So for somebody else, if that is not their perspective of horse, then that
Mhm.
would not be their experience of a horse. Okay. Last night in my dream state, I had a really profound healing teacher, physical body healing teacher, come to me in my intuitive state to give me a solution that I needed for a physical experience I'm having.
Wow.
Okay. Now I trust that teacher
Yeah.
because I vetted that teacher for a long time. So I trust that teacher. So when that custom tailored message was delivered through my intuition in the dream state was my experience, I trusted that teacher. So I trusted the information.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So intuition is very, very subjective. It's very personal. The truth is who and what we all are. We're all multidimensional, interdimensional, multisensory beings at different stages of consciousness. And
Mhm.
everybody here actually is a divine light being. There are many beings that have come from other dimensions and other realms that do not have the greater good of all in their intention, and they're easy to spot. So, intuition is subjective. When you have an epiphany, you'll feel lighter. You'll have an insight. That knowing will drop into the physical body. The knowing was always in the higher conscious state, but you
Mhm.
now, as a result of your practice, have allowed that knowing to drop into your current ego experience. You'll
Mhm.
feel lighter. You feel the,
Yeah.
like have you ever quit a job or left a relationship that you just couldn't suffer one more minute? And as you're walking out the door, you're like, oh, what a sense of relief, because that relationship, that job did not represent your highest good and it would cause you to be out of alignment.
Mhm.
And when you let go of what doesn't serve you, jobs, relationships, lies, belief systems, perspectives, thoughts,
Mm.
intuition is designed to be your constant companion and guide to bring you the opportunity, should you be ready, willing, and open, blowjobs, be loving, open, and willing to bring that information in, you will constantly get guided. Intuition is constantly transmitting, constantly transmitting. The question is, do you know how to receive correctly? Do you trust intuition, or do you think that it's psychologically gibblygook?
Yeah.
And if one has not mastered their feeling body, if they are not yet in touch with their feelings, if they don't know how to listen to their feelings, how to trust their feelings, their intuition is going to be spotty at best.
Mm-hmm.
Because intuition comes through the feeling body, not the tactile touch, the
Yeah.
feeling body. Okay. And each one of us is at a different stage in our own expansion, evolution, experience, many different ways to say it. So it can't come through the same for everybody. This is actually, for me, it's such a beautiful expression of divine love for us. Hi, I'm never going to disconnect. I'll always be there. You have to choose of your own free will to connect. And when you do, I will meet you wherever you are in every single moment. Wherever you are, I will meet you. So when I'm working with someone, I meet you where you are. I don't bring you to me. I know where I stop and you begin. I meet you where you are, here, now. And this is one of the reasons why mainstream counseling and therapy rarely works, or will only in small pieces, if at all, because they get you to regurgitate your story, which just reinforces the story. I don't care what your story is. I don't want to talk about your story. I want to know how you feel right now. And we'll go from there. Based on how you feel right now, I will know where to take you. Powerful. All guided by intuition. All guided by intuition. I've been working with some people for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, your sister, I believe over 10 years now. I do not keep any notes. I do not keep any files, but I'm able to tune in intuitively, tune in and know exactly where she's at. It becomes, when you're working with a true guide and teacher, it is a profound and sacred dynamic. It is very, very important that you filter a teacher, discern, be very cautious before you allow a guide or a teacher in, before you take the information in. Trust your instincts, trust your gut, trust your feelings. And this can even be the case if, for example, I had someone reach out to me recently to say, I've known about you for many, many years, but I was terrified to reach out. And I was terrified to reach out because I knew you were going to give me, intuitively, I knew you were going to give me exactly what I needed, but I wasn't ready until now. I've had this happen many, many times. I've had people come and tell me that they've dreamt about me, they've drawn pictures of me, and this was prior to the days when there were no pictures of me out there in the world, literally. Okay, so I've had people come and recognize me as symbols in nature, animals. So Raven Gray Wolf is the name I was given by the native traditions, and the raven is the messenger from the other side, and the gray wolf is the teacher. So people, again, received information intuitively that was specifically tailored to them and their unique situation to guide them forward. It's powerful stuff. We are so loved. We are so absolutely loved. We are so adored. We are so appreciated. We are so wanted and needed in every way. We must change the way we perceive who and what we are in order to align with that divine grace and love. So we've gone again. Wow.
No, just
so fast, right? So that's another thing that you'll recognize, that if you're working with a true guide, with a true teacher, that you will notice that space and time dissolves completely. Now, you can be listening to, excuse me, you can be listening to somebody. I'm living in a very dry place. You can be listening to somebody who is momentarily aligned themselves. Tune into the teachings and the teacher that consistently give you the same experience. Okay. So like in our sessions, boom, they go by so fast because the truth does not exist in the matrix. The truth does not exist inside space and time. We do not exist inside space and time. Space and time is an experience we're having inside of ourselves. God is not outside of you. You are inside God. So there is no space and time when you're working with a true guide and a true teacher consistently every time. So thank you so much. I could just go on and on.
You so many like
when I'm working with somebody who's open, it's such a beautiful exchange. Don't you find?
So
I absolutely love what I am able to do, and I protect it. I practice discernment. I practice filtering. Am I honored by the company I keep, what I eat, and where I sleep? I have very clear boundaries, no walls, boundaries, so that I'm able to hold the space for this intuition to continue to come in so that I can benefit by feeling so fantastic when one of my brothers and sisters has an epiphany. I am so happy for you. I love it. Yay, it's working. It's working, but it requires teamwork. It requires teamwork. Okay. So it's important to understand that there really is only one of us here. And if we're coming from the intellectual, if we're coming from the matrix, if we're promoting, then we don't yet know that. Thank you so much, Chris. And I think the next subject that we should talk about, we'll schedule and put up, is love.
Oh, yeah.
What is love? What is love? What actually is love? So for anybody tuning in, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you all more than you could even imagine, more than you even imagine. And I encourage you to please join us, tune in again. Check out LynetteAlinda.com. A very beginner's basic book that I've created, an audiobook, is mathemagical.com. And I have a private network, which Chris is a member of, LynetteAlinda.com. So please tune in. Thank you. There's only one of us here. We're all in this together and we belong to each other. It's never over until we all win the race. We're just really walking each other home. It's such a powerful time to be here. Such a powerful time, such a privilege and such an honor. And thank you, Chris, for allowing me to be of service and support. I am so deeply grateful in ways that you can't even imagine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye.
Bye.